Welcome to Liberal Banter with Liz and Olu. This week, we're going to be talking about the DNC that just concluded and Kamala officially accepting the nomination from the Democrats. We're also going to talk about RFK dropping out of the race, some would say finally, and endorsing Trump. And then last topic, we're going to be talking about what happened with some of the, we'll call it fake news, that Beyonce was going to be performing at the DNC. So first, starting off with big, huge DNC that just ended. The vibes were immaculate, as the kids say. It was a party. Everyone was hopeful. Everyone was joyful. Everyone was happy. Obviously, people on the right had a problem with that, as they will. But, you know, we're okay with that. They'll get over it.
The anti-joy party.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, just on a very high level, it seemed like it went off without a hitch. Everything, you wouldn't have known that a month ago a different candidate was head of the ticket, right? It seemed like this was always meant to be. I mean, we did have the goodbye to Joe Biden on the first day, which was well-deserved and people were very sort of emotional about. But once that happened, it seemed like this had always been the plan all along.
Oh, to be fair, the DNC has always had, you know, the Hollywood connections. Folks like Kerry Washington and Eva Longoria and all those people would have been there anyways to give it that, you know, glitz and glamour. So I
mean, yes, but I think that from an organizing perspective, from a speech perspective, you know, because people work a lot on those speeches, and I think a month ago people would have had different speeches. They might have had some different speakers. That, like, the logistics of it having to be adjusted considering who the nominee is now and who the candidate is now. I think that's different. The Hollywood thing, I know you're kind of meh on celebrities in the DNC, but I loved all of it. I was so happy to see Ollets back, President Fitzgerald Grant and Olivia Pope back on the stage together for a minute. That warmed my cold, dead heart. So I'm not anti-celebrities showing up at the DNC.
I just don't. I did love all of it. I watched all of it. I loved seeing, you know, Stevie Wonder and John Legend and D.L. Hughley and all this, you know, like amazing, talented people. However, it did feel a little. I do think that criticism from the Republicans is true. It feels a little bit too Hollywood. Feels a little bit too elitist.
What?
I think.
I don't believe that. I don't agree with that at all. They wish they had all those people. Let's be fair. I mean, why did they bring Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan and I can't remember who else? They had a bunch of quote unquote celebrities there too. So they're just haters. They're just jealous haters. I don't agree with the criticism. Celebrities are people that vote too. I mean, they're allowed to have an opinion.
That's true. I know it's sour grapes from the GOP. I know they wish they had actual celebrities. I think it's hilarious that the culture just has left Republicans behind and they're very salty and bitter about it.
Yes, definitely.
However, I think most people can relate to, you know, like Kamala and her sister, and most people can relate to like Tim Walz and his son with a learning disability. Like, those are relatable experiences. I don't think most people can relate to being besties with like Eva Longoria and Oprah, right? So I just think that could have been tempered a little bit. That's just me.
I guess we'll agree to disagree. I just, for anyone who's feeling like there were too many celebrities, I just want to remind everyone, you know, actors, writers, directors, they are union members. They are American, many of them. They are allowed to vote. They do vote. I don't think it's wrong for them to come out in support of their candidate. I don't think it's wrong for them to be at the convention. They are Democrats and they want to be supportive. I think there are probably Republican celebrities that are too ashamed to come out in public because they worry about what that might do to their careers, but they also exist. I think the Democrats, the people on the Democratic side, or the celebrities on the Democratic side, are just a little more comfortable being public about it. And that's what you're seeing.
But these are multi-millionaires, some of them tens of millions or hundreds of millions or even a billionaire.
Sure,
like
sure.
Oprah, right? Like, if you want to talk about the people who were actually at the picket fences at the last, writer strike, like, what you want is the lowly grip lady, not like Mindy
But all
Kaling.
those people, but Mindy Kaling and Kerry Washington were next to the grip lady, right? They donated money to help those people, fund their lives during the strike. Like, they all paid dues. The celebrities help out the non-celebrity union members out. It's not like they're just sort of in their castles ignoring what's happening.
Do you think that for a party that was trying to make a really big pivot for, the working class people in the Midwest states and really like leading into the, middle America thing with Tim Walz, I do think that it felt a little bit jarring to have like all of the biggest stars. It was just like one famous name after the other. Pink, Dixie Chicks, it just went on and on. I do think that was a little bit jarring. But
all the names except Beyonce. which is a later discussion. We'll do that later. I actually disagree with your with some of your assessment that the DNC was focusing on sort of just middle America, because for me, one of the most important moments was seeing Bernie Sanders' speech, and who was he followed by right after he was done talking? Bernie Sanders, champion of the working people, wants to take down the richest 1%, make them pay their fair share of taxes, whatever you want to say. And he was followed immediately by J.B. Pritzker, billionaire governor of Illinois. That's the order. The DNC did that. So I don't know if they're appealing to middle America so much as you think. I think there's some level of, listen, we got rich people in this party, we got normal people in this party, we have everyone in between. I think that's the Democrats' stance. I don't think it's a purely one side or the other discussion, because they had J.B. Pritzker there right after Bernie Sanders. And J.B. Pritzker leaned into billionaire. He said, take it from, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, take it from a billionaire, as opposed to Trump, who is, not a real rich person or whatever. I can't remember the angle he took, but he leaned into being rich and he said that. So like, I disagree that the Democrats are leaning more in one direction or the other. I think they're like, if you agree with us, we welcome you and we don't really care about your pocketbook.
We just have to agree to disagree, because what I thought I saw was a lot of, patriotism, veterans, teachers. Like there seemed to be a bigger shift to being like, no party has a monopoly on being real America, right? No party has a monopoly on rural America. No party has a monopoly on working class America. That's what I thought the messaging was.
That's part of the message.
That's what the messaging should be.
Okay.
I do think J.B. Pritzker's joke at the expense of Trump, sure, but do we really want, someone who is like, take it from a real billionaire? No, that's really not what the party platform should be.
But I mean, being a billionaire or having billionaires is also an inherently American thing. So, I mean, we'll agree to disagree. I don't want to be, simping for billionaires. I'm just saying they live here too, right? They live here too. They donate money. Some would say more than the normal people, and they exist. So I think it's fine if the Democrats want to say, listen, we have every tax bracket covered in our party. Join us. I think that's fine. How it impacts policy is a different discussion. But let's talk about Kamala a little bit. I say a little bit. She's the nominee for president. And I want to say, I saw that adorable picture of her grandniece, I think it is, sort of the picture taken from the grandniece's perspective, looking up at Kamala Harris as she was giving her speech. And I thought, this is so touching, to see a Black woman be the nominee, be a serious candidate for president with a real chance. I love it. I'm very proud. And I will say, I think most people feel that way, at least on the Democratic side. But there have been some people who are expressing one criticism, let's say, or opinion about Kamala Harris. And it's that she hasn't had an interview with the press since she was announced. Since she basically took over the campaign from Joe Biden. And I find it a fascinating topic because the people who are making this criticism will tell you they're doing it because, they want to hear what she thinks. She's a major party candidate. They just want to know what she's thinking. But then they don't seem to have the same energy for the other guy, right? It's like this whole thing about Democrats being held to a higher standard. They expect her to show up, and when she doesn't, the press gets upset. CNN is saying things. Even Bill Maher tried to make a joke about it yesterday on his show, but then Trump gets a pass and just does, Newsmax and Fox interviews, and that counts, I guess.
Absolutely. This is the thing. Democrats are, I guess, the party of nerds, and so we always show our work, right? Like, Trump is that student who just comes up with an answer and doesn't think about it, doesn't have to show his workings, doesn't have to show any reasoning for why that happened, right? Like, she released a couple of policies about, housing and price gouging, and immediately the press pounced on it and started talking about, well, how is this exactly going to work? How are you going to do this, right? Meanwhile, Trump just says, oh, I'm going to fix the border. And just magically, nobody has any follow-up questions. And more importantly, nobody expects him to know how he's going to do it, right? Like, this is the problem we face as Democrats and as liberals. Also, the expectations for our own selves is higher, right? Because oftentimes it's members of our own party that are like, okay, well, how is this particular policy going to work? Meanwhile, Republicans are just like, yeah, he's a strong leader. He will bring Putin to heel by just, being tough. And nobody asks any questions.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I saw right after her speech on CNN, Scott Jennings, who is one of the CNN Republican analysts, saying that she didn't have any policy. She didn't have any clear plan in her speech. And I thought to myself, your guy is the one who started this vibes only campaign, right? Like, that's how it's been run the last two elections. So I don't blame the Democrats for being like, oh, if we don't need to talk about that, why would we? You guys made that the standard. That's who you picked. You're talking about she doesn't have any policy. What is Trump's plan for anything? I guess we could read Project 2025. But then again, he also said that's not his plan. So it's like,
not read that. So.
Exactly. What is the plan, y'all? What is the plan? The double standard was infuriating to hear that be the criticism of the DNC, and then Kamala Harris's acceptance speech was just, there's no policy. This isn't the time for policy, okay? We're doing vibes right now, okay? Let the DNC have their party this week. If she wants to put out more policy, great. I think it's great she has a direction that she wants to take us in as a nation. I think that's what the campaign is going to be about in this next, 2.5 months. But for any Republican to come on air and say that they haven't seen a clear plan from Kamala Harris, knowing who their nominee is, I mean, the man can't give a speech without complaining about his own problems. Did you see the latest appearances he made where he's complaining that people said he should focus on policy, but he wants to go personal?
Yes, he said
that's your guy.
He said he should reserve the right to have personal attacks. I mean, that's just insane, but I don't really care about Trump. Scott Jennings is actually just objectively wrong.
He is.
Kamala Harris actually gave a policy speech. She came out and she was a little bit different from all the other speakers, right? First of all, she was like, let's get to business. She didn't let the, adulation and the adoration go too long. Right? And her speech was divided into 3 parts, right? The first part was, this is my family. This is the story of, my mother and, our middle class, working class roots. The second part was actually just prosecuting Trump's policies and what Trump has done during his presidency and since then. And then the third part, she talked about Palestine, whatever you think about what she said, she did talk about it. She talked about the border. She talked about the economy. So she actually did lay out some broad strokes of her policies. So to even say that, like, I mean, obviously he's a Republican operative, so he's going to say that, but that's just objectively wrong if you actually listen to her speech.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's yet another way that illustrates how Republicans are really struggling to fight back on the Democrats' messaging and current campaign, right? They're grasping at straws, and I find it funny. But speaking of Kamala and her being a prosecutor, I that was another thing that sort of struck me during the DNC this week was women and how deep the Democrat bench is on the women's side. Obviously, there are a lot of men and politicians in the DNC that are high profile. You got your Gavin Newsoms, your Hakeem Jeffries, your Chuck Schumers, etc. I didn't really notice this at first, but as we got into the convention a couple of days in, I'm looking around and there's all these women. There's these women that are head of the state party, like the Democratic state parties. There are women who are senators, who are governors, who are congresspeople. And I got really curious because I don't think I noticed this during the RNC. There were women who spoke, but I don't think they were in actual elected positions. There aren't as many, right, who were in high profile positions in the Republican Party. And so I looked it up and did some research, and this is from Rutgers University. They have a Center for the Advancement of Women in Politics, and they have some stats, which I thought I would share about women.
I have a feeling these stats
I just thought I would share. Let's start with the Senate. In the Senate, there are obviously 100 senators. There are 25 women in the Senate. 15 of them are Democrats. In the House, there are 125 women in the House. 91 of them are Democrats. In the state governor level, there are obviously 50 states. There are 12 women governors of states in the U.S. as of today. 8 of them are Democrats. I bring this up because it's another sort of example to me about which party is actually sort of walking the walk. What party do we think is going to have those issues as a focus, just based on the general makeup of the people in charge? I just want to leave that out there for some of the women who seem like they're a little middle of the road trying to decide who do you think is going to look out for you. I'm not saying vote for people for gender. I'm just asking a general question. Which party do you think will have those concerns as a consideration based on who's in charge in those parties?
Exactly. And you even look at the top of the Democratic Party's structure, it's like Nancy Pelosi, who is being credited or accused of engineering.
And she'll take both.
She will take both.
She will take both.
She's there. There's Hillary Clinton, whatever you think about her. She was Secretary of State. She is part of the story of how we get a woman president, if we ever get one. There's Elizabeth Warren, there's Amy Klobuchar. It's just so many impressive, actually powerful women who are actually directing the future of the party, right? Unlike that strange Senate lady that they pushed out for the SOTU, who was just
from her kitchen,
like a robot, and you didn't get any sense that she had any real power or any real any real way of changing the direction of our party, right? I mean, gosh, I'm blanking on her name already. Nikki Haley. I just blanked on Nikki Haley.
You were like, who? What's the name of the lady who was running against Trump?
Nikki Haley just, she tried to be, I guess the Nancy Pelosi, right? But because nobody was on her side, and most of them were all men, right? She would have needed the Mitch McConnells and
to stand with her.
To stand with her. And nobody did. And obviously, the party is now stuck with Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi was like, I am going to be the big bad bitch and I'm going to get this done. Right?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So this is the thing, get stuff done. The Democratic women get stuff done.
Yeah, and I was super proud. Like, it wasn't something that they sort of hit you over the head with, right? They didn't actually say this. Just watching this and noticing this was what made me do the research. I wasn't surprised by the outcome. Like, the party, the way they talk about things like abortion or even childcare or the economy, like, it's clear that there's one side that, despite all the celebrities and billionaires that are in the party, that actually does have some consideration and is paying attention to what people are facing. And I really do think part of that is because the makeup of party leadership reflects America better on a gender perspective than the other side. I think that matters. I know some people are going to get upset and say it's DEI or wokeness or whatever, but I don't think you can accurately lead a nation of people if your leadership doesn't reflect that. So just my thoughts and my feelings on that. And I'm super proud of Democrats for that. And then last thing I want to talk about at the DNC, Republicans at the DNC. So
you just told me about this like 5 minutes ago.
Yes,
I don't like today.
I don't know.
And my mind is blown.
I don't know who sent these people. I don't even know where to start because, quite honestly, I believe, and I don't think this is inaccurate. I think I'm accurate here that no Democrats went to the RNC in disguise, right? I don't think that happened. I don't even know why you would want to. So there's that. But some popular Republican online influencers, whatever you want to call them, went to the DNC. There are three that I know of. I think it was more than that. But the three big ones I know were Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, and Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. Mike Lindell and Matt Walsh chose to go, quote, in costume in a disguise, which lasted for about 5 minutes because everyone knew who they were. So the disguise didn't work. And it was funny to see Matt Walsh, who is a very racist, let's say moron, online. He was in Kamala Harris gear, which I just found hilarious to see. But the more popular video that's going around is Mike Lindell at the DNC being fact-checked by a 12-year-old, which is, I don't know if the man felt like he had hit rock bottom before with all the other stuff that's happened to him, but that to me was his rock bottom. He was at the DNC arguing with a 12-year-old about the election, again, the 2020 election, and whether it was accurate in Georgia. And the 12-year-old was the mature one who said, you don't have any facts, and walked away. Fascinating. Just absolutely brilliant work by these Republicans. Just going there to get owned. Hilarious.
Again, why are they just so weird? Like, why are they so odd? I don't understand. I mean, I know that Democrats go to these rallies and like troll them, people like Jordan Klepper or whatever. But
Jordan Klepper is going to ask questions, right? He's technically being a journalist, in quote, and going to ask questions. They are the ones that say the things that are crazy, and then we all laugh. But these people went there under the guise of trying to dig up some dirt or something. Like the DNC is this magical cult, and they're going to give their followers inside information on the Illuminati. Like, that's not how Democrats go to Republican rallies, to ask questions and find out what these people think, to broadcast to the news. They're not there to find some deep hidden secret.
And they're not there like wearing a fake mustache or what. I'm not sure.
Right. It was like he actually, Mike Lindell shaved his mustache. That was part of his disguise. He shaved his mustache and live streamed it for $2 a pop, I think, which I'm sure nobody signed up for. And then he showed up at the DNC in a disguise, and his disguise was like a Hawaiian shirt and no beard. So he was identified immediately. And people were
I'm
like,
sorry. I'm so sorry. I know white guys are having a moment, but like that's such a white thing to do, to be like,
it
I'm
was,
gonna show up in a disguise in the Hawaiian shirt.
yeah, that's totally normal, guys. They're just, it's just weird and unnecessary. And when you call them weird, they get upset. It's like, what is the other word I should use to describe this? Like, gosh. And then, speaking of weird, everyone's favorite brainworm host, RFK Jr., dropped out yesterday. In a truly, I mean, by the time he dropped out on Friday, it was unsurprising to everyone except his supporters. Those people, and I don't want to alienate anyone, but I have to say, they are too gullible, I think. It's ridiculous. By Wednesday, I think the reports had started coming out that RFK was going to drop out, RFK Jr. was going to drop out. People kind of knew it was coming. And so when it happened, it was like, okay, cool. But his supporters were adamant that it wasn't going to happen. And then when it became clear that it was happening, they thought it was some big brain, high IQ move that was going to result in I don't know what. And then even when he said he was endorsing Trump, they were like, no way, there's got to be another plan in place. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Because I feel like RFK Jr. has gotten way more attention than he needs in the press.
The abject cravenness of this guy and the just obvious self-dealing and promotion that he's been actively engaging in. Anybody who was paying attention would know this. He was the one calling around to the Trump campaign and the Kamala Harris campaign, right? And even the Biden campaign. He had been angling something. He can pretend that it's his choice to endorse Trump all he likes, but the fact is that the Democratic Party was like, no thanks, right? Like, because he's just a choosing beggar. He was going around with his bowl, looking for for favors, and only Trump will have him. Right. And this just exposes utter hypocrisy of this entire project. Because if you truly believe that Americans should have a choice beyond two parties, even if you're going to drop out, why are you going to then endorse one of them? Right. The point is to move the country forward towards a non-binary system, which I agree we should do that. And what that takes is decades and decades of building a third party. If you're going to capitulate and hand over your third party to one of the binary parties at the end of the day, then you're literally propping up the binary system. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the speech he gave yesterday was confusing because I think he dropped out. Well, he suspended his campaign, but he's still asking for donations, which, okay, grift. Then he only removed himself from the ballot in a few states and said he will continue to campaign in about 40. I'm still struggling with sort of the numbers around what he's trying to do. People are saying that he formed a unity party with Trump. I'm like, if that's the case, then why is the party called the Republican Party? Why isn't it another name? What is this unity party? But he's still on the ballot in 40 states. So it's kind of like either way, he still gets to connect donations from his fans and followers and supporters. And they're still out there, by the way. Don't think this has dampened their hope. In fact, like I said, they think it's some new strategy and he's going to unveil some genius move that will lead to him winning in November. It sounds like their hope is that there's going to be some sort of contested election and then RFK Jr. will swoop in at the last minute and beat both Trump and Kamala Harris, which is just hilarious to me.
I mean, that's delusional, right? It's delusional to think at this point that any third party can win at this point in time, right? What needs to happen to build a third party is to consistently build on your success from the last time and keep expanding it. But there's no consistency. Any headbanger can just come out and run, and there's no like unified actual third party structure that is building on itself and slowly getting people into the House, slowly getting people into the Senate, right? Like, this is how it has to work before you jump to a presidency. But the problem is that the third parties just attract egomaniacs and clearly just selfish people who are doing things, exactly for their own self-interest. I mean, he withdrew his candidacy or his ballot in states like Arizona and Pennsylvania, right? Which is clearly just intended to benefit Trump, right? That's what the calculation is. I think that calculation is wrong because I really think that the Venn diagram overlap of Trump and RFK voters is bigger than it is for reasonable people.
Well, I think would his plan then be to, if he withdraws in those states, then technically his voters can go to Trump so Trump can win those states. Is that what you, I think that might be what the plan is.
That's what the plan is. That's what I think they think is going to happen. And that by him endorsing Trump, that gives permission to whoever was going to vote for him in those states to vote for Trump. And it's probably something we should be, concerned about, right? We want all of the independent and third-party votes out there that we can get. Don't understand how this then supports his so-called ideology or the idea that we shouldn't have a two-party system, right? Because this seems like he is literally putting his thumb on the scales for an actual participant in the binary system. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And I don't get his supporters either saying, now some of them are saying they're going to vote for Trump because they think it will help with coming up with a multi-party system. I'm not clear. Like I said, I put this on Threads, I think we're always encouraged, especially on the left, to sort of learn who the people on the other side are and understand their positions. And this is logic and mental gymnastics that I don't feel like getting into, quite honestly. Hopefully the Democrats have a better grasp on this than I do. I'm not a campaign strategist, so it's not my job. And unless you pay me, I'm not going to try to get into the mind of an RFK Jr. voter. So there's that. But I will say I agree with your point about third parties in general. They never, in my opinion, and in my experience, in my observing, they never ever want to do the work on the grassroots level. They only pop up every 4 years to stir shit up, mess up the polls, create chaos, and then they leave, and then they don't do anything for 4 years. They're not organizing at the city or state level. They're not trying to help the communities they live in or they want to run in. You never hear from them when there's action to be done. Go to any city or town in America, it's Republican and Democrats on the city council fighting over, book bans. Where is the third party candidate? You never see them. But then every 4 years, they pop up out of nowhere and convince you need to vote for them or say you should vote for them because, we can't have only two parties. Well, sure, but, when the school board was trying to decide on property taxes for the school year, where were you when that conversation was happening? Right. And I don't understand people who go to these. It's not just RFK Jr. It's all of them. It's the Jill Steins of the world, Cornel West. They are never organizing at a local level in things that actually matter. They just pop up every 4 years to stir shit up.
Absolutely. It's hard. It is going to be hard. There has to be like an organized third party, and they have to be happy with incremental progress, and they have to be disciplined and actually build on it over decades. Really, that's the fact of the matter. Before you can actually have a good shot at the presidency, but I guess that's not sexy or fancy enough. So we only get this, clearly just self-promoting attention seekers who run for presidency every 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And then to end the podcast on a sort of lighter topic, let's say, we're going to talk about your favorite topic, Beyonce's non-appearance at the end of the DNC. I want you to cast your mind back to a few days ago and let me know where you were when you first heard that Beyonce was going to be showing up for the DNC. What were you doing during that momentous moment?
I was working and you texted me.
Okay, see, once again, this is what I mean about being extremely online. I will say, though, I did text you. I think I texted you the TMZ article, the now infamous TMZ article saying Beyonce would show up. And I hate to say this, but I usually trust TMZ. I feel like I'm confessing something. I'm so sorry, world. If you're disappointed in me, mom and dad, I'm sorry. But I actually do trust TMZ. I feel so let down by them, I will say. Because I feel like they usually get big news like this right? And the article said they had a source, and I'm like, if anyone has a source, it's TMZ. And that source was a lying liar. That was not true.
I don't even know what to say. I feel like if it wasn't TMZ, somebody else would have started this rumor, because even before Kamala Harris became the nominee, right? There's been this culture war fight over Taylor Swift and Beyonce for the past several months. And I think this happened because people have convinced themselves that they need the voices of these women somehow, and somebody somewhere was going to maybe misspeak or actually deliberately lie and mislead people, and then people who are just already primed to believe in it, which is how fake news works, right? You already have people who want to believe that, vaccines turn children trans. And then if you're someone like, RFK, who can give them anything to hold on to, then they will believe in it. And that's really what happened to Democrats this week.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think people were primed to believe it between, obviously Kamala's campaign song being Freedom, and there were rumors Beyonce was somewhere that's not the West Coast. I think she was in New York or something. And so people were like, oh, maybe she's showing up.
What a coincidence. A celebrity who is in New York. Duh. Like, I don't understand.
I mean, that's where her husband is from. Like, of course they're there. Right.
Like, celebrities are either in Hollywood or New York. Like, what are you people doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, I think I hope TMZ does a whole little deep dive, and whoever that source is now not to be trusted. For me, at least, it reminded me of how we do ask celebrities to pick a side, right? And I think it's fine if they do. We discussed that earlier. We're not going to revisit, but there are people who are waiting out there for Beyonce and Taylor Swift. But I think it's actually maybe more for Taylor Swift. I think Beyonce's stance has been clear. She performed at the Obama's inauguration, all of that. Like, I think we kind of know where she stands. Maybe she's changed, I don't know, but I think we know where Beyonce stands. The question for me and people is around Taylor Swift because of her history. I don't think she endorsed Hillary in 2016, which a lot of people brought up. And she later I don't know if she apologized, but she later brought up as sort of a miss on her part. So I think that's probably where that pressure is coming from. I don't think it should be on Beyonce. I don't expect it to be on Beyonce. I think it may be a more sort of Taylor Swift thing to find out where she stands.
Okay, you just know I completely disagree with you on this. And the only thing I would concede is maybe this is important to people who are teenagers. But if you're a woman and you're older than 20, for the love of God, please, you have to have a better reason for voting for someone than what Taylor Swift said. I'm just sorry. Like, otherwise I can't take somebody like that serious.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if the adult women in the room are sort of waiting for Taylor to tell them how to vote. I don't think that's it. I think people are just curious, I think especially for someone like Taylor Swift, who has been sort of top of mind, let's say, in the pop culture sphere the last year. I think that's what's happening is people just are curious. It's that societal curiosity again that drives people to follow influencers and celebrities on. I think that's what it is. I don't think it's to the point of, and they're waiting for her to tell them how to vote. Same thing with Beyonce. I mean, Beyonce has some really major fans that are very invested. I don't think that means that those people are also waiting for her to tell them how to vote. I think they just want to know where she stands, and if she's like them, if she supports the person they support. I think that's what it is.
I don't know. I just think you can enjoy both of these women without like needing them to think the way you think, right? Like I just fundamentally do not agree that we should give celebrities this much influence and this much power. They already have so much influence. They already tell people what, diet teas to drink and what skincare to use and what baby nappies to use. I mean, where does it end?
Well, that is part of our culture, okay? That's part of our culture. You're just going to have to get used to it. On a real level, though, yes, you shouldn't let some millionaire, billionaire, in some people's case, out there in the ether control your day-to-day and especially your political vote. But it is what it is. And I'm okay with it. I hope that nobody, I hope these fans don't prove me wrong. Like, please don't tell me you're actually voting because of what Taylor Swift says. I think I just put up a very reasoned defense of those people. So I hope y'all, don't make me a liar. I hope there's no one out there waiting to hear what Taylor thinks before they vote. And if you are, I have no words, I guess. That's what I'll say. I don't have words. I hope you're not, though. I think that's it.
All right. That's all from us this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with your friends. Leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps to grow our audience, and we do enjoy hearing from you. Thank you, and see you next week.